got it. All right. We have a few people joining us today.
I'm not sure on numbers.
So I've got Nitin, Dennis, and Oxford Group online with no videos at the moment.
No. Yeah, I'm not sure how they manage the format.
Hi everyone, I'm Mackenzie from Oxbridge Support. I'll just wait a little bit longer, maybe a couple minutes, just to see if anyone else will join, and then we can get started.
All right, Mackenzie, thank you.
If you guys want, we can just get started now. Everything's being recorded, so they can all watch this later on if needed.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, was Paul going to do an introduction, Mackenzie?
That is my job today.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Yeah. So hi everyone, it's Mackenzie from Oxbridge Support. Hope everyone is having a great day. We have the pleasure of inviting Raymond, the founder and CEO of One Contract Property, and Tony, one of our Oxbridge agents, to speak about One Contract Property. And I'll pass it over to you guys.
Good morning, everybody. Raymond here. Welcome to a lovely sunny day in Sydney, wherever you are in Australia. Looking forward to chatting to you, giving you a bit of an overview of what is now possible in the real estate market and what's not been available up to date. One Contract Property, we convert two-part contracts into single-part contracts right around Australia. What that means for you from a real estate point of view is you can now at least double your sales if that's your intention, to be able to expand what you're doing in the real estate space, where you're dealing with mum and dad, first home buyers, investors. One of the things that you're doing at the moment is leaving a whole lot of money on the table because you're not asking the next questions in being able to say, what are you doing with your self-managed super funds? Self-managed super fund in Australia at the moment is a multi-trillion-dollar organisation or industry in itself, with a large part of that actually having people pull the money out of the industry super funds and put it into self-managed super funds to be able to take control of it themselves. And the majority of those people are looking to buy property. Now, some of that's in commercial property. A lot of it has been in established property because up until now, they haven't had the choice to be able to buy what they wanted to buy in the new build space. What One Contract Property does, it allows you to actually do that and find stock wherever you can find a two-part contract right around Australia. So where a lot of real estate agents have fallen down is they know they can't find a single part contract, and I'll cover off that in a minute. Because they can't find consistent stock in a single contract space, they don't talk about building properties in people's self-managed super funds. Now, the difference between what we're used to on a day-to-day basis in selling a single part contract in a house, in a completed property. You'd be doing that every day of the week. And in a new part space, the new part space is under a land and build. So you buy the block of land and then you enter a second contract in building that property. That process inside a self-managed super fund is actually an illegal process. You cannot do it. If you do it, the clients are up for a 45% penalty on the value of the assets in their super fund. So if they got $2 million in their super fund, they could literally be up for 45% of that as a penalty if they do an illegal transaction, such as a two-part contract inside their super fund. Now, what we're going through today, it's not financial advice. It's giving you some understanding of what's now possible for your clients and what you can actually market for yourself and your clients to be able to pick up in their self-managed super fund. From a super fund space, people talk about they legally are obliged to get financial advice. What the clients are legally required to do, they have to have a statement of investment and understanding of how they're going to be investing for the long-term benefit of the members of the superannuation fund. That is a legal requirement. They have to have that. They do not have to legally be required to go and talk to a licensed financial planner. All right, so is it advisable? As long as they're going to talk to the right financial advisor. There's a lot of financial advisors out across the market that hold themselves out as financial advisors, but they remove the ability for clients to purchase real estate in their superannuation. Right? They don't classify it as an income or an asset class for them, more in the sense that they can't work out a way of how they get actually paid for it. Right? What I'll do, I'll share a quick promotion, a video presentation as we work through. As it comes up. And we'll walk through this this procedure. So I've covered off a bit of this so far. As it comes up. Well, you should be able to see one contract property logo across the screen there. Now, as I said, does that come up, Tony?
Now it is, yep.
All right, beautiful. All right, one contract property. As I said, what we're going through isn't financial advice, it's general information only. If the clients, when you're talking to clients, it is advisable that they talk to a financial advisor, but as I specified, it's not a legal requirement that they have to do that. You just can't give financial advice or give that way. What you can do every day of the week is actually sell them a single part contract. Whether that's a single part contract in an existing house that you can do every day of the week, or a single part contract that we'll talk about in a few minutes. The benefit of what we've got today is we're talking to investors. The big benefit of self-managed super fund is they can go from a 45% marginal tax rate or a 30% company tax rate down to 15% tax rate on the investment in income and capital gains, down to a 0% in retirement when it's being handled through a self-managed super fund. Go through what was possible, some of the ATO regulations, a bit about us, and I'll show you how when you've got a client and you've sold a client a property today, most of the time you're unable to go back to that client and talk to them for another 3 or 4 years to be able to access the next sale to that same client. We'll go through and show you how you can access hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of capacity for borrowing within the self-managed super fund with that same client, and actually be able to sell them a second sale and sometimes even a third sale in that. we'll run through some calculations on there. Now, most of us understand when we're talking about investments, there's short, medium, and long-term investments. Short and medium, that's really where how people are going to be living and how it's going to be supporting their lifestyle today. Long-term investments, it's really looking at what are they going to be doing for building their wealth long-term, and also how they're going to be looking after themselves in retirement. And where self-managed super fund really comes into play very, very well is you can build long-term. It is a long-term investment through self-managed super fund because you cannot touch it until retirement age. But then also you're getting a 15% tax rate on your capital gains and income compared to a 30 and 45% marginal rate. So where you're making decent income out of your rental return, if you can keep 30% of that, you're going to be in a better position for future retirement or future even investing as you move through. Now, most of you will be already aware in the asset holding and the vehicles that people purchase property in at the moment being personally discretionary trusts, unit trusts, and companies, just depending on the asset holding and the advice that they get from their their accountants and advisors along the way. Self-managed super funds step into that as a secondary means for long-term investments on that side. What you'll find is people will tell you when you talk about this space, if you haven't been exposed to this area, that it's an illegal transaction. You cannot build within your self-managed super fund, and they are correct up until now. With one contract property, we removed that that problem and give you the total choice to be able to sell your properties and sell your clients single part contracts wherever they need to in Australia. Right? Self-managed super funds are great. There's 10% of persons, actually 10.5% of everybody's wages going into some sort of super fund across Australia. Most of that's an industry super fund, and we'll cover off the difference between industry super funds and self-managed super funds as well. Single acquirable asset, this is what you need to be able to sell a client as a completed product, whether it's off the plan or whether it's a completed product, so they can actually purchase within their super fund. Most of the new home builds around Australia are two-part contracts, land and house, as I said, and the responsibility of that stands with the builders. 2 years ago, there was a few more single-part contracts around the place because what was happening then, it was a 90-10 arrangement where the builders themselves would provide single-part contracts, but the builder was actually covering the full cost. They were building a spec home and then putting it out to market under a single contract. And they were the sort of things, if people were looking to buy brand new properties in their self-managed super fund, they would be picking up that sort of asset. Very limited right across Australia in what they could actually do there. The builder in that example would take a 10% deposit that would sit in a trust account. They would then buy the block of land and pay for it. They would then incur all the costs and expenses in building it. And only once the house is completed would the builder then get paid 100% of the costs. So you can imagine if it's an $800,000 land and house package, the builder has to cover $800,000. Now, how many builders are in a position where they can do that 10 or 20 or 30 times a month, every month, to be able to provide single contracts? And that's why the market has been so limited, is because the builders just can't fund it, right? Where the solution we're going to be presenting today actually fixes that problem. Industry super funds, and this is just a quick overview. So those of you who aren't familiar with it, and also some people might be a bit scared of self-managed super funds, give you an example of what the difference is. Industry super funds, majority of actually, if you haven't got a self-managed super fund, you have to be part of a industry super fund. All of us put our money into the super fund. All of that goes into the share market, into the stock market. The big challenge with that is the fees and charges that are being pulled out of our money on a month-to-month basis before we actually get a dividend or return back on our investment in the super fund. Now, I don't know, I'll use this as an example. Who understands this symbol? How much money has been spent on making you feel good about the industry symbol that represents? There's been tens and tens of millions of dollars spent in that area. And that's why people, when they're looking at it and they're looking to take control, Do you need to be spending that sort of money making you feel good about a brand awareness of a company? In my opinion, you don't. But at the end of the day, it comes back to they spend the money, you've got no control over where the management fees and advertising fees and website fees and all the rest of it go. You end up getting the end result. Whether you make money or not inside an industry super fund, you still get charged all the fees and charges along the way. So whether you make money, you lose money, doesn't matter. Self-managed super funds a little bit different. You can have up to 6 individual members, so it's not as big, but usually those are family members. And the majority of self-managed super funds are a husband and wife or a couple. More and more, as from a seminar yesterday, this rule changed in the 1st of July last year, where you can have up to 6 members within a self-managed super fund. And currently there's about just under 800 self-managed super funds that have 6 members across them. Big difference here is you can still invest in the stock market if you want to. You can invest into cars, collectibles, watches, diamonds, jewels, stamps, anything you choose within reason, within the legislation. But the biggest part where we see people pulling their money out of an industry super fund and putting it into a self-managed super fund is they're looking to buy property and they want choice. And even the financial planners that do play in the property market, they are fairly selective on what they're putting their clients into. A lot of them have moved away from the units and high-rise apartments and townies that are out of single contract because of the sort of long-term returns and the long-term costs that are attached to each of those projects. They're more looking to get into developments or town, like where they own the block of dirt, whether it's a single key, double key, NDIS, co-living, etc. Major part of a self-managed super fund is you control the costs that are actually run. An average super fund will cost you between $2,500 and $3,000 to run on a year-to-year basis. That's accountancy fees, tax and lodgement fees, and audit fees to be able to look after your self-managed super fund. So you do have to have a bit of money in there to do that, but the fees are fairly limited. You're not being charged as a percentage of funds under management. What that means, as long as you've got the right investment, it actually gives you a better return for the investor yourself. And that's where we're looking to be able to help and sell people property that gives them that. How we work and how we can work together and how we can help you grow your business and grow your income. One contract property, we provide the single part contract. We give you the choice to be able to work with the client, to select the location, to select the land that they're going to be buying, to select the builder and negotiate the build price with the builder. And we collect the initial deposit off them of 35% or 32.75% in Queensland. With that, once that's actually done and the package is processed, one contract property look after the whole process of the construction period. The client doesn't have to worry about that side of it. We manage all the build progress payments. From the builder side, and this is why the builders love what we do, and this is why they'll love dealing with you in being able to provide you stock, is it stays a 2-part contract on the builder side. Because one contract property ends up buying a land initially. We end up contracting with the builder and paying the builder all his build progress payments during the process. Once we get up to occupation certificate, the builder's been paid, he's happy, he's done. At that stage, we then call settlement with the self-managed super fund, and the self-managed super fund then pays a 65% balance on the whole project and end up having the ownership of the property inside their self-managed super fund. So it's a fairly simple process, but what it does, it opens up the entire market to you. Now, if you played in the new space, everybody's used to the land price and build price. And in this example, say it's a $600,000 package that we're selling. Everybody thinks they're selling a $600,000 package, and that's what we've been talking to clients about over the years. We're selling them a $600,000 package. What we forget to tell them is there's another $34,000 average worth of costs, being stamp duty, establishment fees, loan fees, etc., that they're going to be required to pay after they sign those 2 pieces of paper to be able to take ownership of that property and collect a set of keys once it's completed. What we call that the effective 2-part construction cost. So a $600,000 house and land package is actually a $635,000 or $634,000 home and land package that is actually purchased by the investor or the purchaser at that stage. To be able to put that into a self-managed super fund and convert it into a single part contract, pretty simple. We charge $10,000 for our 10,000 plus GST for our fee. Now, with that, there's some additional holding costs because we actually own the block of land and we're putting it all together. We've got the land tax rates, insurances, QS fees, connections, legal fees, the mortgage fees, a bit of extra interest, and also GST in all of that. So that goes from a $634,000 package to a $678,000 single part contract. Now, what that shows you is you can take any land and any build price anywhere in Australia, and as long as it suits the requirements of your client, we can turn that into a single part contract that you can then sell to your client at that stage. Especially where you're dealing with clients in the process of selling them their existing home or their current investment, like you've been doing each day up until now. You build the relationship with the client, you build the knowledge of what they're looking for, looking where they're going. In that, now it's a start of a change where in some of those questions you're asking them, you can be asking them what are they doing with their superannuation, how much super have they got, and start to do some fact finding during the process of setting up that initial deal. Once you've got that, that gives you the ammunition to be able to step into the next sale and pick up the next sale. With full confidence, you can find them property anywhere in Australia that can actually suit their requirements. Now, difference between investing in self-managed super fund and outside of super fund, accessing equity in the super fund, once you pay it off, you can't actually access it. So outside of super, when you've got an investor and they buy a property for 600 and it goes to 800,000, they can go back to the bank and then do a redraw against that equity and pull that money out and go again. In self-managed super fund, once you actually pay down a property, you're unable to access that equity in the future. If you want to access it, you've actually got to sell the property, realize the gain, pay the tax of 15% and then move on. What we do with one contract property, because we're actually selling them a single part contract, literally a wholesale price, during the build process of 12 or 14 months, there's the capital growth that actually happens during that process. Now, over the last couple of years, it has been extreme, but on average, you've got a 600, in this example, 678. Over the next 12 to 14 months, that property will appreciate by the time it's built around $100,000. What happens here is when the superannuation fund goes to the bank to get their funding to pay out the 65% they owe us, most of them are going to the bank and getting an 80% LVR loan. Now, what happens there is where they go and the bank now values that property at $100,000 more, they're getting an 80% loan, which includes that $100,000 equity uplift. So they're effectively getting $80,000 put back into their super fund from equity that they haven't actually paid for. It's just happened during the construction period. Now, if you look at an average super fund member that is making maximum contributions of $25,000 a year to their superannuation fund, that literally brings them 3 years closer to their next investment to be able to get involved in that within their super fund. So it's a really good benefit that happens on that side of it. Some of the questions you get when you start talking to clients about this, what's the difference between old and new? Why can't they buy new? Sorry, why can't they buy old instead of new? Now, if you look at the differences here in depreciation, and this is only just one area, you can sell them an existing property if you've got that, but most of the time you may not have what they're after in the area in a new stock. Now you can do that. The big benefit here on a 10-year-old property, the depreciation or the tax depreciation that they'll be able to get out of a 10-year-old property is around $3,000. On a new property, you're looking at over $12,000 depreciation. So it comes back to the benefits that you can be talking to the clients about on that side. There's an old saying that I like to use, it's not how much money you earn, it's how much money you keep. And if you can get another $8,000 or $9,000 tax deduction against your income because you're buying a new property versus an old one, it is a big benefit. Some of the other things you're looking at when you're dealing with old versus new, especially with investors, and I'm probably talking to the converted here, these are some of the things you'll be talking about every day. In an old property, then there's no warranty. The repairs and maintenance, how much is that going to cost people on a year-to-year basis? Additional rent, if you've got the same property or a similar property, an old property versus a new property in the same location, which is going to, one, bring better rent, or which is going to attract the better tenants into those environments, therefore giving you better long-term investment options with your clients. Capital appreciation, buying an old property versus new, how much more is a new property going to appreciate over the next couple of years versus an older property? The ability to be able to sell high cash flow properties to investors. Now, if it's an established property, the likelihood of finding a high cash flow property, they're out there, very slim. If you can now build a brand new property and it's a high cash flow property, we're talking about a duplex, a dual key, an NDIS property, a co-living, those sort of properties that great investments for capital growth, but also even better for cash flow and giving them major positive cash flows coming into their self-managed super fund. All right. And as we talked about just recently, just now, the access to the equity uplift when you're building. Whenever you're talking to clients, you need to be talking to them about why they're looking at investing, short, medium, and long term. A lot of people are now, especially when you're talking to clients that are mid-40s, they are now becoming aware of their retirement and their aging. They're aware of self-managed super. Have they been made aware that they can now build property in their self-managed super fund? No. As Tony says, you're literally at the crest of the wave of this change, is because we launched this product about 18 months ago and spent the last 18 months dealing with builders and educating builders that they can now sell into the self-managed super fund market and expand their sales. We're now just getting into real estate agents and financial planners and accountants and educating the market that this is now possible. So you're on the front of the wave of the people in the industry that are starting to understand that this is now possible, and you've now got hundreds of millions of dollars of investment potential out there that hasn't been touched up to date. Why are they doing it? Usually it's all three by the time you get into the mid-40s. They're still looking for lifestyle and security, but they're also looking at how they're going to be living in retirement. Is it going to be on shares, and is it going to be controlled by what the stock market's doing at any given point in time? You look at over the last week, how many billions of dollars or trillions of dollars, sorry, have been wiped off the share market in the last several days because of the movement. Now, that it goes up and down like real estate. But when shares go down, what happens to the dividends that the shares are actually paying? They go down as well. Now, when the dividends from shares go down or stop being paid, that has a direct result and effect on the people that are looking to live on that income in their retirement. And so more and more people, especially over the last couple of years, are becoming more aware of the volatility of the share market, and they're looking for bricks and mortar, they're looking for security, they're looking for the lifestyle in retirement. Now, what better investment have they got when they're actually buying bricks and mortar? They're investing it into a place where they're renting out, and it's a positive cash flow property. Whether the market goes up or down in the real estate, if they're holding it long term, the rents don't usually go down. The rents get paid week in, week out, because people still need a place to live. So yeah, the market might move 3 or 4% up or down. Does it really matter? It doesn't matter for them, because they're still getting their rental income coming in week after week. And once the property's paid off, by the time they get to retirement, now they've got a solid, stable investment that they can actually have a lifestyle and live on. So this is some of the discussions that we're having with investors and marketing groups and real estate agents around the place. Excuse me. You can have a look at onecontractproperty.com.au. On the back of our website, like, that's a really quick overview of that side of it. I'll stop sharing the screen here. I'll give you a quick overview of our website on that side to actually show you where you can gain access to some of that information as well. All right, on our website, clients can come here. It educates them about the process of purchasing property in a self-managed super fund. As a business partner, you can click onto the login business partner section. It'll ask you to register for the first time that you go here, and this will take you to the back end of the website where you can do some of those calculations that I just showed you a few minutes ago. The first one, I'll run through two calculations. The deposit calculator on the left-hand side here. This actually shows you where you can go shopping in the two-part construction space. All right, so where you're talking to your clients and through your fact finding, you've worked out they've got $328,000 in their super, and they'd be looking to invest in that to be able to purchase property. This tells you what you can actually start looking at in the two-part construction space. Now in Queensland, you can look at anything up to around $930,000. And in all the other states of Australia, you're looking at about $860,000, $870,000 as a two-part construction, so land and house package. That gives you the land and house package. The next calculator along is the finance calculator, and this does the conversion from the two-part construction price into the single-part construction price. Now, when you're talking to clients, you don't want to be showing them the two-part construction brochure or the documentation for that, because you're showing them an illegal transaction that physically is not able to be done. All right, so you don't want to be going down that path. What you want to be doing, you want to be coming into here and converting that into a single contract price. So when you're presenting documentation and brochures to the client, you remove the land price, you remove the build price and the two-part construction price, and you replace that with the single contract price that we'll calculate here. And I'll show you how simple that is. So when you're actually presenting brochures, you're actually presenting the final price to the client. So it removes a lot of the objections, but what it now does, it gives them comparison. What can they buy in that market that they're looking for at the price? And so, for example, we'll use what we're talking about here earlier, $300,000 land. We're building in New South Wales, and you can see all of them are drop-down menus. $300,000 build. Now the important part here, we specify documentation for council. Usually it's about 60 to 90 days the builder takes by the time they get access to the land to the time the builders get approval from the councils. Term of the build, this is an important part because it comes down to what's the build time in the build contracts, right? And that is important because some of them are 26 weeks, some of them are 52 weeks, depending on where you're looking at. But on average, say it's around 32 weeks that you will use for this example. You get two prices here. You get the effective cost of two-part construction, which is $638,000. That's about what they'll be paying for if they're buying it outside of super, plus our costs. This price here is what you start talking to the client about, the $693,000 as the single contract price. And that's what would be going on the brochure, and that's what we'd be presenting to the client. So you can do that across the whole market. Some of the different options you've got up the top here, you've got co-living duplex, where you're giving two separate titles to the duplex inside their super funds. NDIS, other and standard and triplexes. We're dealing with NDIS. I'd advise caution in dealing with the NDIS. It is a fairly complicated process to be able to get involved in that. When we calculate that price, we add another 3 months on in holding costs prior to settlement to allow them to access and put participants in the NDIS properties and also get SDA approval for the construction along the way. But reach out to the team at One Contract Property, or reach out to Tony in talking about that side. It is a new space if you haven't played in that before. Some of the questions we get asked about this process is how does it stack up with valuations? Now, we've all been in the market long enough to know that valuations are an actual risk analysis of the lender. It's not a true valuation of what the property's worth. So whether the valuer has a bad night with his Mrs. or Mr. the night before, or gets out of bed on the wrong side, or whether the banks have decided that the risk analysis or the risk profile of a suburb that you're looking at purchasing has dropped, all of those come into play to what the actual valuation is. So on this property here, for example, the client, when they're when they're completed, they need to be able to pay us $450,000 to be able to finalise that process. If the valuation comes in dollar for dollar, $693,000, they get a 65% LVR loan, and that comes in at a $450,000 loan value, which they pay us out. They're happy, they move on. If the value comes in, the valuer comes in, and this is the big difference, like they can come in at $563,000 to $130,000 less. Now, the likelihood of that happening in any of the markets is fairly extreme. But even if it did, the client still doesn't have to put their hand in their pocket for anything, because at an 80% LVR, they'll still get $450,000 to pay out that contract and then take legal title of that property. So because we're taking a decent deposit at the start, we remove the valuation risk across the market in most cases, because the clients are pre-qualified to be able to get into the property and move forward. Now, funding, the only thing we ask people to do is have a block of land, choose a builder. They don't have to use we don't have to use builders that we use, the finances we use, it's their choice, right? If you've got specific people that you like to use, you can use those. On the funding side, we do have the option where your clients can get pre-approved with HEMPSTEAD Finance, and that's a division of Columbus Capital that look after our short-term funding. They can get pre-approval at the front to know that they've got confidence at the back end that they can get the 65% lending to be able to pay that out at the end as well. So that can all happen at the start of the process. Now, this is a fairly quick overview of what we can do and how we can expand your ability to sell to your clients additional sales that you haven't been able to talk to them now. The reason this is possible is, and the reason you can sell them additional amounts, is because as an individual, we have a borrowing capacity, and it's at whatever level our income is. Their self-managed super fund is a separate legal entity. It has a totally separate borrowing capacity compared to that of the individual that you're talking to. So where you've sold the individual a house or a couple of investment properties, you can now access the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are in their self-managed super fund and use that as a deposit and the borrowing capacity that the self-managed super fund has to be able to sell them their next investment property. And people that love property. They'll be looking at how they can do it in their self-managed super fund. And that takes you getting some education and understanding about what's possible to be able to expand your sales. And what you've got here is a tool that gives you the ability to at least double your sales, because you're dealing with people that love property. You're dealing with people, if they're mid-30, probably 38 and above, if they're at that level and a couple, they've got enough money in their super to be able to start investing into real estate. All right. Some of the other videos, we got some education and information videos here. There's some 40 videos. They're only 5 or 6 minutes long, and they will give you the education that you need if you're short in any area, to have some understanding of what the processes are and how it all works. All right, so that's all done there. We've got a range of other documents on the back end here that give you access to some additional support material. Where you've got clients that are ready to go and they love the process, they've chosen the product that you've actually put in front of them. In here, you'll find the sales advice, and this is the first time they'll actually see one contract property. In the sales advice, it's fairly simple. The first page is literally just a tick sheet. The important section of this one is the sales advice deposit, and this is $10,000, or whichever the builder, what the builder deposit, the land deposit plus $5,000, whichever is the greater. So if the builder wants $5,000 to actually hold the build contract, the land developer wants 10, that means there's plus 5 for us, there's $20,000. So you'll select 20 other here and you put $20,000 there. So I see some of the land developers around pushing for a 5 and 10% deposit. Again, this money's coming out of their self-managed super fund. It's not coming out of their own pockets. And this is where, because it's coming out of super fund, especially where you're talking to clients that are a bit concerned about the interest rate rises now, they can't touch the money that's in their super fund. And this is where people are more comfortable in using their self-managed super fund for investing, because it's not affecting their day-to-day lifestyle. So if they're investing $600, $800, $900,000 into a property inside their super fund, and the interest rates go up 0.5%, it's not going to affect their lifestyle. And so that's another major benefit that you've got. Fill out the first part, land developer, builder down the bottom, that's the contact details. Property details on the second page, the deposit. That money gets paid into our trust account. Once we receive that, plus the calculation sheet that you do in the single part contract conversion, send that plus this across to the sales advice email that's on the top of the screen. The important part here, self-managed super fund details, the bare trust and corporate trustee are the most important part, because that's the section of the self-managed super fund that's going to be literally buying the property. And that's the name of the contract, what the contracts will be issued under. The purchaser solicitor, so we need all those details to be able to go to a single part contract. They sign it, send that off, and we're now off and running. So it's a fairly straightforward process on that. And then I think there's a few other bits and pieces here. If the clients are looking for funding, and if you haven't got a mortgage broker that you deal with, you can access this brochure here. This is who looks after our short-term funding, but they're also on board looking after long-term funding for your clients as well. And they are some of the best interest rates in the market for self-managed super fund lending. They've got a zero liquidity testing for the self-managed super fund, so it's fairly simple process getting them through and getting them approved. But that gives them the information about the sort of funding that is available to them through us. Now, we don't make any commission on that. This is just the best rate and best finance that I believe that's out in the market at the moment. And the clients, again, they've got the choice to be able to use that or not. And you've got the choice to be able to present that to them to assist your clients on that side. So that's a really quick overview of what we do, how we do it, and how we can establish you having the ability to be able to double your sales in the next 60 to 90 days by grabbing hold of this product and being able to use this to sell more properties to clients that you have not been able to talk to in the past. So I think we've got one question on the chat at the moment. Thank you, Tony. Stop sharing the screen now. So if you've got any questions, put it in the chat, or happy to catch up individually after this as well. Have you got anything to add to that, Tony?
I was just going to cover off on commission payments, because that's how we all get paid, of course, particularly in the real estate industry. So the very important point here with working with us is your commissions do not get impacted. Whether you're supplying the property or whether you need our help in supplying the property, then there'll be commissions for you included. The other really important thing on the commission side of things is we have the ability to pay commissions up front. Okay, so for those of you that are used to working with new builds, you know that commissions can take some time to come through on unconditional or slab payments or frames, or even at settlement with some builders. We have the ability to pay upfront on unconditional land contracts, which is with no clawbacks, and that can help with your cash flow markedly.
Yeah, no, that is an amazing, that's one thing. Thanks, Tony. I did forget to mention, we need to get paid. So you can sell a property today, and so even if it's unregistered land and the land isn't going to be registered for 6 months, we can do the deal. We can sign up the client on the deal. We can enter them into a single part contract. They go unconditional and they pay their 32 or 35% deposit against that contract, and we pay commissions on exchange of contracts. So we don't even wait for the land to be titled. You actually get paid your money today, rather than waiting 6 and 12 months to be able to get your commissions as well. So yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks, Tony. So I think that was anything else on that one. All right. Do we help with the setup of self-managed super funds to clients that don't have a self-managed super fund set up at the moment? We've got partners, Sequoia Capital, that look after the setup process for us. It's a fairly simple process. we put the clients in touch with Sequoia, and they will set up the self-managed super fund and also the Bear Trust with corporate trustees, and that costs around $4,995, which is a very good figure for that side of it. We use them because they understand property. All right, they're pro property. They understand the complexities around superannuation, self-managed super fund, and also they will talk to your clients about not only setting up the self-managed super fund, but also ongoing maintenance. And they charge around $2,000 to $2,500 a year to manage the superannuation fund, to be able to lodge the tax returns, do the audits, and take that headache away from the clients, because it has to be done. They'll also talk to your clients about the insurances. So in most super funds, there'll be some sort of insurance that the clients have been sold or that they've got taken out within the super fund. If you're closing down an industry super fund and moving that into a self-managed super fund, that's an important process that doesn't get missed on that side of it. So Sequoia will also talk to them about that, and making sure that continuation of coverage is continued as well. All right.
Yeah, there's a very wide variety of fees and charges for setting up self-managed super funds. You can set them up yourself for nothing online. I wouldn't recommend that. And I know I've heard of companies that charge over $20,000 to set them up. We've done quite a bit of work with Sequoia. We've done our due diligence in the marketplace, and basically it's a referral into them, and we've found that their service has been excellent.
Yeah, because one of the big things is there's people out there that are charging cheaper than that. I'll be careful, because setting up a self-managed super fund, it's a company, it's a trust structure, but the important thing about self-managed super fund is the trust deed. The wording of the trust deed has to be correct. If it's not correct, you're wasting your money. You could end up with fines and penalties with the ATO, because you do get audited every year, and the trust deed controls what the superannuation fund can do, what can it invest in, how it can borrow, who it can borrow from, right? So it is very important that gets done. And as Tony said, we're doing multiple deals with them. They've gone through our due diligence, and happy to set up a session with them to be able to talk through that process, and have you deal directly with them, or deal with us to be able to get that done on that side of it as well. So I suppose from our side, we're looking at what are the best choices that we've been able to find in the market to be able to assist us being able to sell, or you being able to sell more to your clients and look after and build the relationships with your clients long term. And Sequoia is one of those people that have come on board, and one of our preferred partners to do that, along with Homestar Finance and Columbus Capital as well. So I think that's the last question that we've got on the chat box at the moment. If there's no other questions at the moment, I think we'll call it to an end. I appreciate everybody coming online and being available today to chat and listen to us. Reach out to Tony if you've got any questions, tony@onecontractproperty.com.au, or give us a call at the office. We'd be very glad to help you and work you through any questions and queries that you've got. If you want to be able to catch up and run through this one-on-one again, happy to do that as well. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate everybody's time, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys. That's really useful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for speaking today, and we hope everyone has an amazing weekend and the rest of the day goes fast.
All right. Have a great weekend. Thanks, guys. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.